Before, I was just so burnt out and like a mess and struggling. And now I'm like confident and feel like I'm a leader and I can just clearly set out systems.
If you've ever felt burnt out or bored or you've been doing this jewelry business thing for a long time and you need a spike of inspiration into your business, well, I think you are going to love this video today. On the podcast show today, I have a 17-year vet in the jewelry industry who did all the things that an artist does, right? They got their MBA in jewelry design and sets off to start a business. They learn how to build the business the back way and end up finding and coming back to the basics, later in their career, which actually helps them become grounded and more, joyful, maybe is the best way to put it. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of Flourish and Thrive Academy, and I've helped over 8,500 different jewelry business owners launch, grow, and scale successful businesses using my methodology called the desired brand effect. So if you're someone who wants to build a 6 or 7-figure empire, you are in the right place. And I'm going to share with you a very inspiring story today of Rickson Sharkey. She is the designer behind Rickson Jewelry, and she has a very unique take on jewelry design. She has focused her entire career on creating fantasy jewelry for collectors. And so she has a very specific niche, which has been amazing for her to attract dream customers because she attracts the kind of people that want the jewelry that she loves to wear and make for herself. And the cool part about it is that there was a time when she was kind of ready to give up because she was feeling so burnt out and needed that extra energy. And after joining us and working with us for a while, she shared how she invigorated her passion for her business, how she was able to get some of the parts of her business that she didn't enjoy off her plate, and how she basically got back to some of the basics when it came to branding and merchandising and marketing, and actually launched all these new marketing channels that helped her grow her business and eventually land a customer that bought a 5-figure piece. And she had to keep it a little bit under wraps about how much the customer actually spend. But at the end of the day, when you're working with those numbers and you have collectors who are willing to buy that much, you are already winning. So let's dive into this episode with Rickson Sharkey. I think you're going to be really inspired. I am so excited to have one of my favorite people, one of my favorite students on the show today. Welcome, Rickson Sharkey of Rickson Jewelry. I just adore you. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. I'm beyond excited. Right from when I heard the first podcast with Stephanie Denault, which you suggested, I was like, I desire to be on this podcast. So this is like a dream come true.
And that wasn't even that long ago because you found out about Flourish and Thrive in January, right?
Yeah. And recently, like during the boot camp, you were like, you need to check out Stephanie. And I like looked up your podcast and I'm like, she did a podcast with her. And I was just all twinkling.
Yeah, Stephanie it's different, but similar kind of genre to what you do because you have a very specific niche, which is very cool. And we were just talking about your hair before because you have overtone hair color in your hair. And I actually know Megan, who is one of the founders of that company, which is super fun.
Totally wild. And her marketing is like on point.
So good. Well, I'm excited to interview you. We're going to be talking a little bit about your journey over the last 9 months or so. You've grown a lot. You already kind of had an established brand. And I'm just really proud of what you've created over the last 9 months or so. So I want to dive in just by asking you to tell us a little bit more about your journey into jewelry design.
Sure. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And just a little caveat for your audience. I am just starting my winter season today. If you're new to cycle tracking, I was asked to be on the podcast and I looked at my Stardust app, which Nicole and I, one of the coaches, were twinkling over. And I was like, oh, it's right in like my vulnerable time. Do I want to do this? And I was like, yes. So I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
It's going to be amazing. Tears are welcome. If they come up.
So my journey into, thank you for supporting that. So my journey into jewelry design, when I was a kid, I would make, female barrettes and sell them on the lawn. That was my first pop-up sale. And whenever my grandma would come to visit, she would just be dressed to the nines, like dripping in jewelry. And I'd say, well, where did you get this piece? And she's like, Granddad bought me this when we were on vacation, or this was for my birthday. And it was just like, Already the tears are
Do it. That's good.
my about story. So yeah, it was like, the smell of her perfume, and it was like the love that my grandparents shared was like in their jewelry
Yeah.
because it was like a prompt. The
Mhm.
jeweler was a prompt for all these stories. Like we went on this cruise together. He gave me this for my birthday. It's got my birthstone. And I didn't know at the time, of course, but then when I did go to art school and I did start doing jewelry design, I looked back, and then now when I was doing my about page for the program, I looked back and thought, yeah, that's where my love of jewelry probably stems from. It's like these little encapsulations of the love that we have for each other. It connects to our insides, it connects to the people in our lives. And it's just so exciting to me to share that like specialness about
Mhm.
jewelry with other people.
I love that. And so you ended up going to art school. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I went to OCAD in Toronto, and I started just in art. I didn't know I wanted to do jewelry. And when I did my first piece of jewelry, I was astounded at how not like easy, but it was just natural for me. I always loved drawing. And as a child, I found it really frustrating because for me, drawing, I have to translate a 3D object into 2 dimensions. So there's skill and there's experience and understanding
Mhm.
perspective, shading, all that stuff. When I started sculpting, my first casting class, I drew the design and then I sculpted it in wax, and it was easier to sculpt than it was to draw. I was like, this is just natural to me. So, what was your question again?
No, just tell me about your
My
art school.
improv.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, were you asking about my thesis or
No,
just
but
like,
let's talk about that because that was my next question. I was going to ask a little bit about your thesis and how that kind of tied into everything that you're doing now. And how did that actually inform your approach to jewelry design?
okay, excellent question. So, my thesis and how it informed my jewelry design was I decided to study my dreams and my subconscious, and it turned out to be very
That's
challenging.
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I remember my professor saying, it's hard to like look at your subconscious. It's hard to look at these things. And I had this viewpoint that everyone's art is about their subconscious.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
right? And so I just wanted to kind of like call a spade a spade. But our psyche and our ego, they don't really want to do that. They're kind of
Yeah.
like, no, we need to protect you. You can't like look at this head on. So a lot of my pieces ended up being like dark staircases and like locks. And as I went through it, they became more and more like meaningful. I was like pulling these pieces of jewelry like out of my subconscious. And it kind of informed my process in the way that I think I learned that it was scary and I'd rather make other people's dreams come true. And yeah, like I definitely made some really meaningful, amazing pieces, and I'm getting back into that now. But as a career, I think I wanted to be intuitive with other people and like kind of turn my people pleasing into an asset. Which for your listeners, people pleasing is not an asset. Definitely with therapy and heal those wounds. But
That's hilarious.
so it definitely informed me that I wanted to make meaningful jewelry, like jewelry full of meaning.
That's so great. And so you kind of got into like a unique niche with your current jewelry design. I mean, when I look at your pieces, like everything that you said about your thesis, like parts of it actually makes sense to me because I remember you were posting something the other day about like an egg with the shell around it and then that was holding it's like yeah, there's like this protective barrier around the thing that is supposed to be the piece of jewelry.
Yes. Yes, it's all about that. Like one of the pieces that like I'll say now, I know you might be asking this next naturally. So one of the pieces that connected directly to my subconscious was this. like female leg, and I was a high level rhythmic gymnast. So I actually went to the world championships in Greece and competed.
Mm, wow.
Yeah. So it was like intense. And then when I was 16, my parents got divorced and I just went off the rails, like was completely traumatized and I quit gymnastics. And then when I was doing my undergrad, I would create pieces and then interpret them using like symbol interpretations and things I was learning with psychology, studying psychology. And so it was a female leg, and then it stopped at the knees and then curved back over into two ribbons that kind of curled back.
Mm,
So when I studied that, I thought, okay, so I had like this beautiful plan, this like physical art form that I was training for, and then I just quit and I just kind of my my growth was like stunted and I curled back onto the floor. And then where it gets kind of emotional is because that was sort of the external, that's not really the
mhm.
subconscious group. Then on the inside, it was all hollowed out and dark. So the outside was high polished because, you know, women and people in our society are taught to create
Yeah.
polished outside,
Mhm.
right? And inside we're like dark and struggling. And
I have
so
meltdowns all the time. I had one yesterday.
meltdowns, I have a story about meltdowns. So So I was literally like melting down before this interview, and this ties into your course. I was like reaching out all to all my people, like, I'm struggling. It's my time of the month, like my vulnerable time. Like, what do I do? And all my friends were just like, okay, do this in the interview. One was like, do this meditation. And I even did your releasing overwhelm meditation
Oh
from the
my gosh.
course.
Awesome.
And it helped so much. I was like, okay, what if I say something wrong? Okay, just release that. What if I talk too long? Okay, release that. And so I like in one of the groups, someone messaged me and was like, I just had a meltdown at work. And I was like, oh, this is so validating. Like when we're vulnerable, it actually helps people. And so I'll get back to my piece. So the inside was all hollowed out and dark. So that was the part about the subconscious that my gymnastics career was wonderful and I had friends and I learned about, but it wasn't where my passions actually were. It
Mhm.
was I wanted to do art and I couldn't because I was going to a special school where we would stop training at 2 o'clock every day. We would stop school, go train, and we had to sacrifice art class to go train.
Mm.
So it was, really sad that I quit and it was a hard time, but I actually got to focus on what I really wanted to do, which was art. So that's where tapping into the subconscious is so fascinating to me
Yeah.
because it's the connection between the exterior and the interior and finding out how they inform each other and finding out how we can be aware of it so we can function the way we actually dream to.
I love this. And so how would you describe your jewelry now? Because you mentioned the interview that I did a while back with Stephanie Deneau. I think that might have been like 2 years ago. But part of what she does is really like I'm going to use the word mystical, or like I know that she does really well selling at places like Comic-Con, and then also has a huge fan base of collectors who buy her products because they're so unique in this specific genre. So tell me a little bit about your work, because it's different, but like in a parallel niche.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, doing custom designs informed my work, like created my current catalog. So I started with what I loved, so heart pieces and kind of skeleton pieces and that kind of like raw tapping into who we are inside. And then people would see my work and say, I love this. Can you do like a slightly different version? Or I want like a custom skeleton wedding ring. And I was kind of fitting this niche or this gap in the market for where people wanted something that was maybe unusual or out there, and they were actually scared to ask artists. They would approach me really hesitant, like, oh, I know some artists don't want to change their work, but would you do this? And I was like, yes, I would. I want to make a career. I want to serve my clients. So it just kept evolving. Like my most of my website was were custom designs to begin with. So there's
Mhm.
dragons and D&D rings, and it's like very kind of nerd culture, a lot of like video game
Mhm.
pieces and unicorns and fantasy. So it's kind of neat because it's almost like my clients were tapping into my subconscious because they were asking me to make pieces that I wanted to make. And now, after taking your program, I have more confidence to still do custom designs because I love them, but I have the time and energy and capacity to actually sit down and like I'm designing a tarot deck and writing a book, and jewelry is woven through them. And it's going
So
to be
cool.
a, yeah, like our emotional side and getting in touch with our soul. So, so
I
yeah,
love it. I love it.
thanks.
Okay, so just a tip, you have to watch, if you haven't watched it yet, The Consultant. Have you seen
Oh,
that show?
no, I'm
Write
writing
this
it down.
down. It's the skeleton thing reminded me of that, and you'll see why. I'm not going to spill the beans about why, but
Okay,
there you
I'm excited.
go.
Thank
It's a
you.
really weird show, everyone. If and it's kind of creepy, but it's addicting. So, like you got started, you went to art school, you started doing, how did you kind of get started selling your jewelry? Like, how did that work out? And how did you
Right.
build some momentum in the beginning?
Yeah. So this was one of the things that was really neat when I first came across your program because I was like, yes, I know that works because I did it. And like
Mhm.
I did what your program outlines really the long way.
The hard way
Yeah.
before
Like
you took it. Yeah.
pretty long, but yeah. So I went to school for jewelry and I was like, I like to think that me and like millions of other people just manifested your program and you like answered the call because literally I wanted your program when I was going to university. So I just asked my professors, how do I make a living? How do I do this? And it was actually really demoralizing. A lot of them were very amazing, and I'll go into that. But a lot of them, especially the female ones, not meaning to be, but I would say I dream of having a family. I want to get married. I want to have kids, and I want to be an involved mother. And I also want a career. And they were like, hard no, not possible. You got to choose. And
Wow.
they didn't be like that. That was just their experience. It was just sort of the reality of the times and the reality of what women had experienced. That was that they needed to choose one or the other. It was hard to do both.
Yeah.
So, being the kind of rebel that I was, that kind of just motivated me. And I was like, I'll do it.
I'll show you.
Basically. So my professors like Ken Rickerson and Rob Mitchell are amazing jewelers, and they helped me. They were like, okay, go to the one of a kind fair, one of a kind show, see what people are doing there. And that was really helpful because I went and I met Naomi Levitin, who's
Mhm.
another amazing jeweler, and I said, can I sell for you? Because I was really good at sales. And she said, no, I always do the show by myself. And I was like, okay, well, here's my card, which was just like a piece of paper with my name printed on it, like not even
Here's
cardstock.
my card.
Yeah.
Here's my phone number.
Yeah, literally. And I was like, just think about it. It might be nice to like go for lunch or something. And sometimes people can sell your work better than you because they have like a different viewpoint, which isn't totally true. If you're listening, now I know that you're your best salesperson for your jewelry. However, it's nice to get help at a big show
It
like that.
really is nice to get help.
So she did call me, and over the 4 years of university, I worked for her. And by the end, she had her first baby, and I actually ran the entire show for her
Oh,
while
wow.
she's BC. She shipped all her stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
So I did like lots of the grassroots stuff that you talk about. My friends and family were my clients. My husband's family supported me a lot. His brother, when his friends started to get married, they all hired me to do their engagement rings. So yeah, just reaching out to all your people. I started selling on Etsy in 2010, I think. And it was wild. Like I would tell people, oh, I sold something online. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, I sold a piece of jewelry online. They're like, I don't understand. Do you know the person? I'm like, no. I just put the picture online with a price and they bought it. They're like, that's crazy. I would never do that. So I was totally just like running on that for a long time because I was one of the first people online. You
Mhm.
used to search, like Google cat necklace, and my cat necklace would show up because I
Yeah.
was just for so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did like all the things, had my work in galleries, pop-ups. I did a farmer's market. Yeah, I did lots,
So you got out
all.
there and
I got
hustling and
I
hustling.
hustling like no tomorrow in a really genuine way. I even sat on the streets of Toronto and I made like wire work jewelry during the summers during uni. And a woman walked by in like a hot pink dress. And I was like, I love your dress. And she's like, it's my wedding dress. And she literally just got married and her husband bought this necklace with like the same hot pink Swarovski crystals. And their photographer was taking pictures. Oh, I wish I had that for Instagram now.
That would be so great. I know. If
Right?
we had the foresight to see what
If
Instagram would be. I know.
Instantly. So yeah, so I was just doing all the things. And then eventually the online business was just enough and I wasn't doing in person anymore. When I started having kids, I stopped doing
Yeah.
shows.
That's great. So we met you in January and you decided to join us for laying the foundation. I'm just curious because it sounds like you did kind of figure a lot of things out. But what were some of the challenges that you were facing that made you want to dive into taking a laying the foundation program?
Yeah, so by the time I met you all, I was completely burned out. I was like
Mhm.
super struggling for about like 11 years. Like my oldest kid is 11. So while I was having kids, I was just like maintaining the business and it would sort of run itself, not run itself. I was running it, but the marketing, my
Yeah.
clients are nerdy, so they would just share it and they do all the marketing kind of for me.
Yeah. The sharing economy, which we talked about.
Exactly. So my what's that what it's called? I'm going to use that now. So
Yep.
when I had my fourth child, the fear set in. I was like, I have four kids. My husband's a stay-at-home dad. We own a home. We have a mortgage. I gotta like make more money. And fear is not a great
No.
reason to do things. So I was like, I'm gonna work 5 days a week. Because up until then, I was really enjoying the entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Hmm.
I'd work 3 days a week. I was like breastfeeding, which turned out to be really good style of time blocking. And so when I decided to have my fourth child, wanted to make more money, my ring went viral on TikTok and I succeeded. I had my best year ever. And I was like, it's time. I'm going to work 5 days a week. I'm going to hire people and I'm going to like next level my business. And it just kind of completely crashed.
Oh no.
I just like, yeah, it didn't work because I was telling people like, this is how it works. This is what I want. But I didn't have the systems. I wasn't maybe being clear. And I was like handing it off because it wasn't from a place of joy. It was from a place of burnout. I was like, I can't
Hmm.
handle this. You do it. And I just wasn't involved. I wasn't checking on things. And yeah, it just was like kind of a disaster.
So you felt like you kind of needed a refresh or something like that just to get regrounded and reconnected.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
I came to you, I was thinking about quitting. I was thinking about like shifting careers. I'd like lost the joy. I still did love it because I love my business, but the day-to-day things were just like crushing me.
I bet. Yeah. It's hard when you're in that spot because it's hard to kind of get out of it and move beyond that. So you talked a little bit about burnout. Were there any other reasons why you decided to join the Laying the Foundation program?
Oh, like so many.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so when I did the boot camp, so I actually heard about you like years ago. You
Oh,
popped
you
up on
did?
some. Yeah, I knew about Flourish and Thrive, but I didn't really know what you were. It just popped up in some aspect. I was too distracted. I might have subscribed to like an email or something, but yeah, I wasn't in the headspace to look into
Hmm.
it. And then so when it did come out, I was already familiar with your brand and I did the boot camp. And right away I was like, this is gold. Like she is giving away like 17 years of gold because you were just saying like everything I'd done. And I was like, yes, I know that works. Yes, I know that works. And then even things that people would ask in the chat, what about this? You were like, no, you don't need to do that yet. Like, wait until you have more data. I was like, yes, she's right. I tried that without the data and I tried it with the data. Like, it was just so clear that you knew what you were talking about. And then one of my colleagues from university was in the chat, Kat, Janiga, sorry, Kat,
Yeah.
if I'm mispronouncing. She was like, "Hey, are you Rickson from OCAD?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am. Like, what's up?" And then you said to connect with Stephanie. So even before like I'd invested any energy or time or funds, I had like connected with an old friend, made a new one. I implemented some of the boot camp strategies, and like instantly I was like, not only are there the tangible results, the light had been relit for me. I
Hmm.
was I was excited again about my business. I was validated that what I'd been doing made sense. And I was also learning about all the holes in my business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just very validating. And then I did research on you and I saw that you worked with Marie Fornio.
Yeah.
And that was very, like, that opened a new window in my mind that successful people get coaching. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like she's practicing what she preaches.
It's funny because we were just in a meeting with like my leadership advisor, and we're looking at our P&L, and we're trying to, like we're always looking at things to try and figure out like how can we reduce expenses, like how can we increase profitability and stuff like that. And she's like, maybe you should back off on so much of the coaching that you have. I mean, it's kind of a joke. I'm like, coaching is non-negotiable for me. Coaching and business groups,
It's my
non-negotiable. I will
passion.
like eat popcorn for dinner every night over not getting coaching. It's true. Like I will. Jason
Oh,
and I
and
were
I
like
can
all week. I'm
tell.
like, we need to cut back just for a short period of time. Like we can't go out to dinner 5 nights a week. And he's like, that's fine. He's like, I'll eat chips and salsa. And I'm like, you can't eat chips and salsa. So we're like, okay, baked potatoes and asparagus for dinner. I mean, I'm
No, and I
joking a little
can
bit,
tell.
but seriously, like everyone, this is just a natural progression of like entrepreneurship.
Yes. And I can tell like you're showing up like every time. I'm like, oh, I get to talk to Tracy again. Like this is so valuable because I know the value because I did it. Like
Yeah.
I did it myself. I spent the energy and the time and the money, and I know the value. Like right away, I was like, I see the value. But of course, I was in like a state of burnout. And so it's sort of easy to say now looking back, but I definitely was still like doing my research and humming and hawing. And then my favorite reason for joining the program was I had just read the book Signs by Laura Lynn Johnson. And so I had asked my grandma's spirit, what if we use like elephants as our sign? And I'd been seeing elephants and I went on like a self-care trip and saw an elephant. So we'd sort of been using this sign for a little bit. And so I said, okay, grandma, like, what do you think about this program? And a couple days later, I was like scrolling your Facebook group, and you had
Oh
said, "How do
gosh.
you eat an elephant?"
I know exactly what you're talking about. The how do you eat an elephant post.
Yeah, and then I looked in the comments, and I didn't get just one elephant. I got like a whole bunch. So I was like, "Okay, thanks, Grandma." For anyone who's into science, like you heard, I did all these other things. It was just like an aspect, but my favorite aspect.
I love that. You've had this, like, you're really into like healing, intention setting, and all those things and visualization. So, how did the intention setting really like resonate with you? Because we do teach a lot of that stuff inside of the program. And how has it allowed you to kind of release some of the limiting beliefs that you had before joining the program?
Right. Yeah. So some of the limiting beliefs that I've been able to release and like how the program implemented that for me or like led me down that path was I liked in the community, we were like all talking about our struggles and what was going on. And I could start to see where certain things were holding me back. Like maybe I have a fear of success or maybe I have a fear of
Mhm.
failure. And then in my own life, I was doing like therapy and inner child healing. And I just saw so many similarities between like my struggles and other people's struggles. And I mentioned like people pleasing. And I also saw like codependency habits and perfectionism.
Yeah.
I like very common with jewelers because allows us to kind of glorify our perfectionism.
Yeah.
So years I would tell people like, don't worry, you're in good hands. I'm a perfectionist. And then when I started therapy, they were like, no, perfectionism is not an asset. Like it's a trauma response. And I was like, what now?
Yes, it is. We've
Yeah.
seen Jason's post on this.
Hashtag Jason. So yeah, it's very, I don't know, it's very like that's what I love about the program. It's like you can be vulnerable and you're kind of encouraged to be vulnerable because that's where the like magic is. Because once you face these things, they're not so scary. So I would do like inner child healing with fear. I'll like follow the feelings of fear, give my past self all the things I needed. And I usually discover a root. And I found at the root of some of my feelings of fear was a fear of being alone. And I think
Mm.
people pleasing and codependency stems from that.
Hmm.
And, if I'm doing that in my personal relationships, you best believe I'm doing it in my business
Yeah.
relationship. So it's just kind of magical, like figuring those things out. Everything can literally grow and thrive when you get those things out of the way. And, they're not like totally healed for me. It's exciting to see like how it's going to progress and how it's going to change. But just that initial recognition, like those sorts of things, if people are listening and thinking about it, just do the boot camp and you'll
Yeah.
get these kind of little realizations just in the chat. Like it's unreal.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
things that you mentioned when we were in the pre-interview was that you loved how you could basically cater the program to your own interests, and that helped you kind of mold your business around what mattered to you. Do you want to discuss that a little bit more and share what you meant by that?
Yeah. So how I mentioned that I'd kind of been doing my business like for my clients, still in my
Mhm.
style, still very satisfying and fulfilling. And yet it wasn't really like coming from me. So in doing the program, I've been able to create systems and hire people where it's actually a benefit and a productive relationship. And now, I'm writing a book and I didn't know that that was in me. I didn't know really that that was like something that I desired until I got all the other stuff off my plate and off my chest and could say, okay, this is what is important in my business to me. This is what I want to focus on. These are like the content pillars. These are my core beliefs. Oh, okay. Well, then everything else is easier now.
Mhm.
I can just, put it on autopilot and still check in and still like manage and lead and then focus on things that I actually want to do, like that actually light me up instead of wearing all the hats. And because I'm so intense with all the things I do, I get into huge rabbit holes. Like I'm a professional at all the things. Like I know how to do lighting, I know how to do photography, I know how to do it all. And I think I was getting confused thinking I'm passionate about all these things, but I'm not. I was just kind of obsessively doing everything
Mhm.
really well because I wanted to be really good at everything that I tried.
I'm sure that
And now
ties into
I'm
like your past being a professional gymnast. I mean,
definitely.
that's a hard road. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's really yeah, it was really intense, and it is my personality, so I don't wanna, like, abandon that ability to be intense, but I want to direct it intentionally towards the things I want to focus on.
Mhm. I love that. Thanks for sharing all that. This has been such a great interview. I have so many more questions before we wrap up. So my next question for you is like, what are some of the practical tools that you got out of joining laying the foundation? Like, what was the most helpful? Like, what did you get results from? Tell me a little bit about that.
Right, yes, so I got results and, like, from so many things. I really enjoyed pricing. Oh my goodness, I have a story for you later about pricing, and lots of the practical things, because I am really into the art side. So I really neglected like finances, contracts, pricing, and my website was pretty like established, but even that I got great tips for. Social media I was not doing. So like emails I was not doing. I had a bunch of holes in my business and it basically just filled
Mhm.
all of the gaps. So yeah, I think those were like the main ones, and I'll probably get into more as you ask me.
Okay, awesome. So, well, let's dive into results. Like, what were some of the biggest results and outcomes that you got from taking the program? And you could be as specific as you like, Kara, like some of the things that you learned or how your business grew.
Right. So one of the like main things was I landed my first five-figure sale.
Wow,
So yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, like mind blowing. And I can tell you about that one now or later. I think
No,
it
I want to
was
hear. Tell me about it.
okay. In the group, I posted a question about pricing and this piece specifically. And it was the egg one that you
Oh, yeah, the
mentioned.
egg one. Yep.
So I said, you know, I want to price this way. I feel like it should be this. And I have pricing structures. Like I went to university for jewelry. We learned how to price. However, it was so difficult to calculate that I would kind of fudge it, right? Because we were supposed to take in like overheads and all this
I don't
stuff.
like that way of pricing. It's too complicated.
It's exhausting. So I would just sort of wing it. And like, not that my prices were based on nothing, my prices were okay, but I was trying to get more intentional. So I asked in the group, how do I price this? I feel like it should be this way. And up until then, I'd had lots of affirmations, validation, right? Like, Rickson, you're killing it. It's great. Okay. And this, they were just like, hard no, you do not feel pricing. There is a formula. So it was really humbling. I was like, okay, I need to work on this. And so I used the formula and I was really uncomfortable about it because it was a higher number than I thought like people would go for. And I posted online and no one bought it, but that was okay because it was higher than I thought people would go for. And it's like a figurine, so it's very large.
Mhm.
So it needs to be like a high price because it takes a lot of materials and labor and all the things. And then I met this amazing client who said they want to buy it. They want to commission me to make it in 24 karat gold with a genuine peridot egg. And this thing is like 2.5 inches high. And yeah, and we're doing it.
That's insane. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so what else? Like, tell me some more of the outcomes that you had.
Right. So right away, I started like your boot camp reminded me about a lot of things that I wasn't always doing, like following up with people. And I think right away I went into my social media messages and I had the auto response on. And what happens with that is sometimes it gets responded to by the auto and then it gets marked as read. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't like
see
that.
it. It drives me nuts. So so I just went in and I just answered a bunch of those that I hadn't even seen. And I think I landed like a bunch of big sales. So that was pretty easy.
Amazing.
Right?
I don't like the
So
Instagram autoresponder. I don't understand like how it benefits anyone because unless you're using it like it auto response and tells them what to do next and they're like
right.
here like click this link to talk to us or something. Because for that same reason we had it on for a while and I'm like we've missed people are like you didn't respond to my message. I'm like what are you talking about?
I
Because we're
know.
in there like several times a day responding and you know.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So yeah, that drives me nuts. So it was just like being reminded of certain things and being like having sort of some sort of path, because as your audience probably knows, when you're sitting at home like working alone, you have these great ideas and you do them and you get results, but like half the time you don't know, right? And you're
Mhm.
spending your time trying things, you don't know where you're going, you don't know where it's going to end up. And with programs like this, it saves so much time and energy to just be like, hey, what do I do here? And I think in the boot camp, I can't remember if I was on the Facebook group yet. You probably had a face group
Yeah.
or group boot camp, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I would be like, oh, what do I do with this? And right away, it's like people with education and experience. And I don't mean that you don't have to be educated in jewelry design to be like
Yeah.
an amazing jeweler. It's just that experience and like passion and people saying like, oh, I just did this. Oh, I just did that. And I'm like, oh, and me contributing. I didn't realize, like, I undervalued how much it lights me up to contribute to a community and to feel like valuable, like I'm helping people. And now I'm learning about law of attraction. I'm like, oh, it's an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
Like I want to give to receive. That feels good. But when you're burnt out and you're in lack and you're at home alone and you're like, I need to make more money or this went wrong, you just like can't always see that. And I think
Mm.
we all need help
Yeah.
sometimes.
You do. I mean, it's true. Like, and you're right. You know, the support in the community is just amazing in all of our programs. I think, like, I'm just so excited to see how the community comes together to support each other in laying the foundation and in momentum and the TYC. Like, I open up my apps and there's like so many like unread messages. I'm like, I have so much to catch up on. And thank God for me, I have coaches to support the communities because there's no way I could be the only person in there. But it's incredible, like, how, my friend Robin says great givers are great getters, because that's like that energy exchange that you, when you give back and forth, is super incredible. You don't realize how much you get by supporting other people because you learn something in that process about yourself and maybe things that you haven't been doing yourself, right?
Yes. And it's also about recognizing, like, my friend brought up discernment. So
Mm.
I'm an overgiver. And it, now that I learn about law of attraction, I'm like, oh, I was always getting it back. I was always getting energy back. Like, I'm very successful in lots of aspects of my life. However, if I'm turning to my, like, if I'm turning to a person who doesn't know, their advice is going to be based on their
Hmm.
fear, their limitations, and their experience. Whereas your program is full of people who are experienced, and they're not all going to have all the answers I need, but probably one of them is. And
Yeah.
they're going to give you support in all the aspects. One will give you emotional support, one will give you mental, one will give you like actually how to do the things. Like you
Mhm.
go click here and you do this.
I love
So
it.
yeah, it's like intentionally putting my energy into a place that's going to bring back the energy that I need.
I love it. It's so great. And I just love this story. I just have a couple more questions for you. How are you showing up differently as a jewelry business owner?
Yeah, I love this question. So I like to think of myself now as a conscious leader
I love it.
because I've basically, like, I've hired or I work with Laura Lee. Her name is Laura Lee, artist online, and she's a jeweler. And she's basically taken over almost everything for me. All of my pieces get sent to her and she
Oh, she's
packages them.
designing the piece. She's actually manufacturing for you.
No, so I already had, like, before I took LTF, I already had the production worked out because very early in my business, I realized I could not do it
Yeah.
all. So I have a casting house, a polisher, and a stone setter. What I hadn't outsourced yet was packaging
Mm.
and, like all the things. Like there's a lot more things that I'd like to outsource. Now I'm looking for a social media manager. But basically, she orders the pieces from my casting house, which really
Oh,
adds up.
so she does like the production management.
She's like a production manager, and then she also packages the pieces, which
Great.
really fills me with comfort because she's a jeweler, so she can
Yeah.
check them and,
She
like, make sure it's
understands.
the right size, make sure the stones are set properly, all those things. Because I
That's
was
something
having
we
to
worked
do,
through. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, yeah. So that's just amazing, like learning how to hire properly. And a really cool thing was your team said hire people, and this was in your momentum program, which was amazing after LTF. Your team said hire people within your fan base, which I did not take their advice because I tried that before, and because I didn't know boundaries and things, I found it uncomfortable when fans did say they wanted to work for me and I knew it wouldn't be a good fit. Now I have like boundaries and I would be fine with that. But at the time, I just posted on Upwork and Laura Lee was like, I'm a big fan. I want to work for you. And I'm like,
There you
how is
go.
this possible, Tracy? Like, I didn't even try and still a fan found me.
There you go. I
And
love it.
she's just like amazing. Like, I used all your hiring techniques, and she was like the quickest to respond. And I even have two other people lined up to help with more things in case Laura, wants to go on vacation, things like that. And yeah, she's just like me. She's like a one woman show, but she's in a different stage of life where, her
Mhm.
kids are grown and she has more time and things like that. So I'm just like, I'm just so excited about it because I think your question was about before and after. Before, I was just so burnt out and like a mess and struggling. And now I'm like confident and feel like I'm a leader and I can just clearly set out systems. Oh my goodness, the systems are so exciting. Like anytime I do something now, I just record it and like upload it to my Google folders file. And I'm like, I don't have to do that ever again. I can just tell someone to look at it and hire them.
So great, isn't that? It's
It's so
amazing.
exciting because I don't like doing things more than once. I can see now I'm like an idea person. I want to just do new things all the time.
How's your personal life shifted?
Oh my goodness, so hugely. So, like I mentioned, I was doing like I'm still doing therapy and things in
Mhm.
conjunction with this. So, yeah, I was just a complete mess. And now I'm like more regulated. I wake up and do meditation, and then I help my kids get to school, and then I have breakfast. Maybe I work on my book or my tarot deck, and then I'll like set my timer for 25 minutes and like see how many sticky notes I can do from my theme jar because I have theme days.
Mhm.
And I can actually time block, which is amazing. Because when I was in your boot camp and people would say, "Oh, my biggest takeaway was time blocking," I was like, "You just did time blocking?" Because I've been trying to time block for literally like 5 years. Like, and just like getting more and more sad that I couldn't do it. And then I took your program and now, huzzah, I can time block.
I
So
love
yeah,
that.
yeah, I'll just do like I'll do maybe 1 hour of shop admin. And the rest of the time I'm doing like custom designs and drawing and doing
So
all the
great.
things like talking to clients and just doing things that light me up. And then I see my kids and I'm like excited and I'm a more conscious parent. And then it's so funny because how you break things down into steps. Now I'll look at like my 4 year old, struggling to do some task. And I'm like, oh, I'll just break it down. And like, the goal is we'll learn this in like a month or like, ooh, let's turn this into a challenge. Like I'm
Yep.
just like all in. It's just the concepts are applicable to your whole life. It's like a holistic way of living.
I love it. That's so great. So just one more question. What would you say to someone who's considering joining laying the foundation?
Yeah, great question. So I would say to just do it, do the boot camp, try it out, you'll see. And you might be in a place where you're feeling like you don't have the energy, you don't have the time, and maybe you don't have the money. And I get it. Like, I was totally there. And you might be thinking, like, maybe you're feeling intimidated by these like big sales goals that people talk about on these podcasts and things. And the thing is, you won't have like the same as what people are talking about. You'll have your own like beautiful growth occur. And now I understand because I was feeling that way. I was feeling intimidated. Now I understand I don't want to reach other people's goals. I want to reach
Yeah,
my goals.
that's important. That's
It's really important.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one of the core teachings that I have taught for people for years as an entrepreneur and business owner. In fact, I just wrote a post about this last night on my social media and spoke about it on a live that I did today before we started recording interviews, is that you might have goals at a certain point in your life or career that are inspiring and exciting to you, and those goals will change, and that's okay. And all that matters is that you're working towards the things that matter to you, not to someone else. So I could set out something and say like, oh, like every jewelry business owner should have a 6-figure business, or every jewelry business owner should have a 7-figure business. But if that's not what you want, like, because I will tell you, because I've done it, selling $1 million a year in a jewelry company that is, if it's not fine jewelry, is a lot of freaking work, and it's not easy. And I loved it when I did it that year, and I felt a huge sense of accomplishment. And what I would say now, like, it's one of the things that actually caused burnout for me. So that's not for everyone. And I can see in hindsight that the reason why I was burnout and why it forced me to want to pivot at that time. And that's why at the core of everything that I teach, it's like, all that matters is what matters to you. And we want to help you reach that goal in the most elegant, easy, simple, affordable way possible.
Yes. And the like brilliant thing that happens is what I thought I wanted at the beginning is not where I'm ending up, but I can still succeed in my jewelry business because I know how to run it properly.
Yeah.
So I combine my new goals and just see what happens. Like I just started a coaching business and I'm like super lit up about it.
It's so
And I
amazing.
just wrote like 20 social media posts for both my social media or both my coaching and my jewelry business. And now I can see how they can be like intertwined and
Yeah.
it's just all falling into place. And, it's challenging at first. Like I could not see it. And that's what's so exciting. It's like
Yeah.
shifting from the fear to excitement. Like you don't know what it's going to look like. It's all blurry. You don't know where it's going to go. So shifting to like this exciting, like write my own journey experience is way more fun, like shifting to a view of curiosity. Now, instead of
Yeah.
being like, I want this outcome, I don't know how to get there, and then being frustrated if I don't get it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. Let's see where it goes. Let's see which parts I like to do and which parts I don't, which parts I can outsource, or, where it's going to lead. And then the
Mhm.
results are exciting, valuable information rather than a win or lose scenario.
I love it. Oh, so great. All right, Rickson, thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful that you took the time to chat with me today.
Thank you. Me too. I'm just so excited. And I wanted to do a really quick shout out to my kids.
Yay!
If they listen, so Oakley, Callum, Maggie, and Lizzie, you can do anything in this life. I desired to be on this podcast and here I am.
So
So
great.
yeah, I'm just so happy and grateful I took LTF. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Now, if you're someone who has been in business for a while, or even if you're just starting out and you want to get back to some of the basics, I'd love to invite you to join me for a free masterclass called How to Stand Out in a Saturated Market with a Timeless Jewelry Brand. We're going to be walking you through the 5 trade secrets that every jewelry business owner needs to know, but all those experts don't really want to tell you because they don't want you to get your competitive edge over them. So check it out. It's an amazing class and it's 100% free. And on that class, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit more about our Laying the Foundation program, which is the program that Rickson was talking about in this interview. Thanks so much for watching this video today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, that you comment below this video and share with you your key takeaway, and set notifications up if you want to hear the next time we release a new video. All right, thanks so much for watching this today. This is Tracy signing off. Until next time.